Throughout history, the world has been filled with unexplained miracles and phenomena. Claims of healings, visions of religious figures, and relics performing bizarre acts have come from all over and fascinate people to this day. Many of these things science can't explain and remain a mystery. They baffle skeptics and dazzle believers. If anything, they're great stories to tell. I'm Mike with List 25, and here are 25 unexplained miracles you'll find hard to believe.
25.
The voice of Saint Clelia Barbieri. Born in Italy in 1874, Clelia Barbieri helped found a church called Sisters Minims of Our Lady of Sorrows and was quite influential at the young age of 23. Sadly, she passed away from leukemia. However, before she died, she said to her followers, "Be brave, because I'm going to paradise, but I shall always remain with you too. I shall never abandon you." A year after her death, while the sisters were singing, a high-pitched voice filled the church, swooping around them and singing in harmony with them. Her voice continued to follow them in their prayers, and to this day is said to be heard at that church.
24.
Our Lady of Guadalupe. Sightings of the Virgin Mary have happened all throughout history, but one specific time, Mary appeared to a Mexican peasant named Juan Diego in 1531. Mary requested a temple be built and told Juan Diego to ask the bishop nearby to build it. Diego went, but the bishop didn't believe him and requested a sign. Mary provided a sign in two ways. Diego was told to pick roses from a barren hill and put them in his cloak. When he did this, he brought the roses to the bishop, and out of his cloak came a painting of the Mother Mary. This portrait exists today and is said to be perfectly preserved despite no alterations or anyone doing a thing to it.
23.
Martin de Porres. Martin de Porres was a layman who worked extensively with the poor and sick in Lima, Peru. Many miracles are attributed to him during his lifetime, including levitations, miraculous healings, and showing up in two places at the same time. Many people pray to him for healing intercession. For instance, one man in 1956 had a block fall and crush his leg. Gangrene set in, as well as hepatitis. Doctors were going to amputate the leg when a woman prayed over the leg. The next day, when the bandages were removed, the leg had radically changed and no longer needed to be amputated.
22.
Our Lady of Zeitoun. Remember when I said that there were several sightings of the Virgin Mary? Well, get ready, because here's another one. In 1968 in Cairo, Egypt, Farouk Mohammed Atwa thought he saw a woman trying to commit suicide on top of St. Mark's Coptic Church, except it wasn't just a woman, but an apparition of Mary, the mother of Jesus. More and more people saw her, and the police were called due to the overwhelming crowds. Over the years, several more sightings cropped up, so leaders of the church were called to investigate, and they confirmed the sightings.
21.
Robin Talbot of Overseas Missionary Fellowship. It was 1963 in North Thailand, and Robin Talbot was a Christian missionary ministering to local villagers. The first woman to become a Christian and stop worshipping animals was told by the villagers that she would become ill for converting. She did. While Mr. Talbot prayed for her, the rest of the villagers jeered. Then, she died. Or at least, they thought she did. 20 minutes later, she rose up and told the villagers all about their secrets. The woman claimed to have met Christ in heaven, but was told to go back and tell the villagers what she had seen and been told.
20.
The stigmata of Gemma Galgani. In 1899, at the age of 21, Gemma Galgani was said to have endured the stigmata, a bizarre event where a saint suddenly receives the wounds of Jesus. After a very difficult vision where she spoke to Jesus and the Virgin Mary, Gemma woke up with the wounds and tried to cover them up. While many in the church didn't believe her, her spiritual guide, the Reverend Germanus Ruopolo, came around to believing her accounts and wrote a biography about her.
19.
Saint Joseph of Cupertino. Saint Joseph of Cupertino loved to levitate. In fact, it's said he defied gravity over 70 times and would have to be restrained in order to keep him on the ground. Naturally, he's considered the patron saint of aviators.
18.
Our Lady of Akita. She's back, this time in Japan. In 1973, Sister Sasagawa was a recent convert from Buddhism and incurably deaf, but she began to see visions of the Virgin Mary. She also said to have seen the wooden statue of Virgin Mary weeping 101 times. The apparitions became so famous, it was broadcast on television, and pilgrims from all over the world came to see it.
17.
Incorruptible corpses. Incorruptible corpses is the Catholic and Greek Orthodox belief that some corpses of saints do not decompose, or their decomposition is delayed due to divine intervention. The bodies cannot be embalmed or mummified in any way in order to be considered incorruptible. A number of corpses have reached this status, and are usually put on display.
16.
Michael Crow's failing heart. At age 23, Michael Crow suffered from a heart disease called acute myocarditis. His heart only functioned at 10% capacity, which damaged his organs. If he didn't get a transplant, he'd likely not survive. However, the doctors ruled out a transplant, considering it too risky. A mere hour after his diagnosis, his heart pressure went up, and a little while later, the left chamber of his heart started to work on its own. After an MRI scan, there were no permanent scars. He's now out of the hospital and healing.
15.
Jan Grzebski's 19-year coma. In 2007, Jan Grzebski awoke from a 19-year coma and discovered Poland was no longer under communist rule, and everyone had a cell phone. But more amazing is that he miraculously survived the 19-year coma after the doctors only gave him a few years to live. He credits his survival to his wife, who took care of him and moved his body several hours a day so he wouldn't get bed sores.
14.
Miracle of Lanciano. In the 1700s, a monk in the town of Lanciano doubted the doctrine of transubstantiation, the Catholic teaching that the wine and bread of communion are Christ's physical body and blood. One day, while he said the words of consecration, dedication and blessing, the wine and bread physically turned into blood and flesh. He told the other monks, and eventually the blood and flesh were placed in a special container and is now a Catholic relic.
13.
A mysterious voice. In 2005, Lynn Jennifer Grosbeck ran off the road and into the Utah River with her 18-month-old little girl in the back seat. The crash instantly killed Lynn, but her daughter was still alive, hanging upside down just above the freezing water. She was there for 12 hours. 4 police officers came to the scene and immediately said that they all heard a distinct voice saying, "Help me." When they found the little girl still alive, they rescued her and brought her to safety. They don't know how she could have survived such an accident.
12.
Church cures cancer. At age 57, Greg Thomas was diagnosed with terminal cancer. After losing his job and getting ready to say goodbye to family, he didn't have much hope to cling to. One day, as he walked his dog down the road, he found an abandoned and run-down church. Not having much else to do, he decided to fix it up. He asked the town for supplies in return for fixing the church himself. After repairing the church, he discovered that his cancer had gone into remission.
11.
The Broken Man. Grayson Kirby died on June 7, 2014. He was thrown out of his car in an accident and rushed to the hospital. The doctors were able to revive him and keep him alive, but just barely. With every bone broken in his body, crushed lungs and ribs, the doctors didn't think he'd live for very long. After 10 days and many prayers and fundraisers, Kirby opened his eyes and said, "I love you." He's alive and now on the mend.
10.
The Man Who Fell from the Sky. Alcides Moreno, a window washer working 47 stories high on a scaffold, suddenly went from washing windows to hanging off the side of the platform while it plummeted to the ground below. His partner, who was also his brother, died in the accident, but Alcides Moreno miraculously survived. With 24 pints of blood and 19 pints of plasma and several surgeries, Moreno started to heal.
9.
The Blood of Saint Januarius. An ancient Christian priest named Januarius was an early martyr under Diocletian, and his blood was kept in a relic. The blood of Januarius is said to liquefy almost every year on the saint's feast day. This has become a major tradition within the Catholic Church, especially the parts of Europe where Januarius was influential.
8.
Therese Newman. Much like Gemma Galgani, Therese Newman was a Christian mystic who professed to have several visions of Christ. After seeing visions of the Passion of the Christ, she suffered wounds at the top of her head and blood came out of her eyes. Being told to only live off the Eucharist, bread and wine of communion, She obeyed and supposedly only lived on the Eucharist until her death.
7.
The miracle of the sun. This is the last one about the Virgin Mary. I'm sure of it. In 1917, in Portugal, 3 children claimed to have seen the Virgin Mary on their walk home from tending sheep. The children told their parents, and word spread of the vision. As more and more people gathered where the children saw the visions, it became a hot spot to see if they could find her apparition. One day, 70,000 people attended the site, and the children claimed to see her. Mary claimed to put an end to World War I soon, and that the people should repent. One person pointed up and said, "The sun!" Everyone claimed the sun did miraculous things, such as dance around the sky and spread pinwheel psychedelic colors.
6.
Man cut in half. A man named Peng Shulin in China survived being cut in half by a lorry in a horrific accident in 1995. After 20 doctors grafted skin from his head to seal up his torso, he was primarily bedridden. In what doctors consider a miracle, he is now able to walk again with the assistance of prosthetics.
5.
Girls Brigade at Anon Baptist Church. In 1970, the captain of the Girls Brigade in Anon Baptist Church had an ulcer in her leg that released a lot of pus. A doctor said she needed to give up her activities, and if the ulcer healed, she would need skin grafting. She called on her sisters to pray for her wound. After prayer, by the next morning, the wound had almost entirely healed. When they continued to pray later on, it healed entirely without the need of skin grafting.
4.
Jim Mallory's silent killer. An abdominal aortic aneurysm is considered a silent killer. It slowly grows over time without anyone knowing before it bursts and kills the person. Jim Mallory acted for hospitals, helping resident doctors and medical students learn how to diagnose symptoms. One day, Jim Mallory pretended to have an aneurysm, except he was actually having one. They took him to have a scan and found out that he did have one ballooning. Since they caught it in time, they put in a stent and saved his life.
3.
Ruby Guapero Casimiro's stopped heart. After a C-section, Ruby Guapero Casimiro's heart stopped beating. Doctors did everything they could to revive her, but after 45 minutes of a dead heartbeat, they considered her dead. Then, a blip on the heart rate monitor surprised them all. Suddenly, she was brought back to life.
2.
A dog walks 20 blocks to find owner. Nancy Frank went to Mercy Medical Center in Cedar Rapids, Iowa for surgery. 2 weeks later, while Nancy was still recovering in the hospital, her dog Sissy decided to leave the house, walk 20 blocks down to the hospital, and visit her. The hospital found Sissy wandering around and called Nancy's husband. No one knows how Sissy could find Nancy after such a long time.
1.
A 4-year-old survives internal decapitation. After a horrible crash in Idaho, a 4-year-old boy was internally decapitated, something that should have instantly killed him. Internal decapitation is where the skull is separated from the spine on the inside. Fortunately, his rescuer held his head in place rather than picking him up entirely, likely saving his life. Enjoying our lists? Be sure to click that subscribe button in the bottom right so you don't miss out on new ones every Monday through Friday. Share them with your friends and help us consistently conciliate curiosity. And if you want even more lists, check out these 3 videos here, or just head to our website at list25.com.